Musicians are the shaman of our era, or at least we need to strive to be the shaman. We got to keep that spiritual connection to that deep primal thing. And that's what I've always done in my music. Even if I'm playing drums for someone, I'm thinking about keeping that deep, fucking primal, raw, cathartic thing going. And when it's really good is when it all comes together.
Here we are. We're on the Weird Music Podcast with Mike Dillon. Mike, glad to have you here, man. I want to start this off. I see, you've got this awesome music room you're in right now. And shit, Mike, looking back, stepping in a time machine, take me through that moment when you decided to go all in music and kind of what your thought process was like way back when.
I've been playing since I was 10 years old. And for a couple of years, I was really into drums, taking drum lessons. I love John Bonham. This was like 1975, 76. Buying Led Zeppelin records when they came out. I also loved Kiss. And then I got into skateboarding and sports for a couple of years. And then I got into Rush really heavily. And like Zappa and all the prog rock that was happening, maybe like 1980. And I just became a Rush freak. And I got asked to play in a band in high school. And I quit playing football and I just focused on music. I got the bug. And that was probably like right after my sophomore year in high school. And I just been going ever since. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to music school. I even played in the Houston Youth Symphony. That was when I was all in. So I've been all in since I was about 15, 16 years old.
No plan B.
No plan B, I can remember people at school. I went to a private school in Houston. They were like, well, you're really good at math and physics. You should be like an engineer or something. I'm like, no, I want to be a musician. Well, what if you don't make it? Nope, I'm going to be a musician. The counselor types, they tell you, don't chase your dreams, kid. So luckily my mom was a school teacher. She, back when I was 10, got me drum lessons with a good teacher. And we had school band, and I had a choice between sports or school band and band, and I don't know if everyone still gets that choice. I don't have kids, so I don't know what's going on in schools today. I hear rumors,
Yeah, they're cutting the funding to the arts departments. Definitely a unique situation to have been propped up by people early on. Like, so much of school is sit down, shut up, memorize this for the test. So we're in the School of Rhythm right now with Mike Dillon, man. And, thinking back to summer camp this past weekend, like, it's insane how profound, like a euphoric experience, something as simple as rhythm can bring to people in the crowd. And I think it'd be cool to hear from you, as someone like top percussionist, like, what do you think it is about, rhythmic patterns that can be just so profound, like psychologically to experience as a listener?
I mean, rhythm, even before I played drums, being 6 years old and seeing a drummer play for the first time, it's pure magic. Okay. And now that I'm 55, I'll be 56 next month. The challenge for me is still just letting the music do what you just described, letting the rhythm take you, and not being cynical about the rhythm. The pulse is everywhere around us, whether it's the cicadas outside making noise or the crickets chirping the way they chirp, the birds singing, rhythms everywhere. Whether it's a DJ, like just making big fat beats with bass that rocks your bowels, or a drummer doing something mind-blowing. That's what is cool about summer camp to me, or any music festival I go to. I remember the first time I went to like a festival. It's like I was with Claypool and we were playing this place out in California. And it was mainly like a dubstep festival, you know. And I had never experienced one of those things. And it's not really my wheelhouse, but it was still the essence of it. It's all rhythm, you know. So being a percussionist, I get all this shit behind me. I get to study rhythm and practice every day and stay in the rhythm, you know, because there's 12 notes or whatever in an octave, but there's a gazillion rhythms. So it's all rhythm. You know, it's like that famous Dizzy Gillespie quote. He was playing, I don't know if, I think he quoted it, but he's also told a few of my friends that played with him, including Johnny Vodakovich. He goes, you know, when I'm at home, I practice music theory and scales and all that stuff. But when I'm on the gig, I play rhythm, you know, and that's a trumpet player. So to me, you know, one of the kings of Black American music, he sums it up, you know. And I know like on that tour, it was a vibraphone trio, bass player and drums. I was just feeling like I was sucking really bad. And I heard that quote. I was like, yeah, just focus on the rhythm, you know. So I'm glad I play a melodic instrument that you get to play like a drum. You know, that's what the vibraphone is. It's a melodic instrument that you play with mallets. So it's still drums.
And you're doing a lot of improv, totally up there, right? Like I saw you with Everyone Orchestra, and man, the whole thing's on the fly. I'd love to hear your take. Like, what is your mental approach going into an improv format?
Well, it's always great to know and trust the musicians you play with. To me, improvised music demands trust. And then it also demands silence. A lot of people don't think about silence. Like a lot of people think improvised music, that means just play a lot of notes and go crazy. Sure, if it's appropriate. But my favorite improvising musicians that I play with, like James Singleton down in New Orleans, or Stephen Bernstein in New York City, or Matt Chamberlain, great drummer from Critters Buggin', you know, or Brian Haas, who's on tour with me, you know, they're not afraid to just shut up. So to me, if you shut up and listen, then you can hear what the other musicians are doing and make a choice. And back to studying, you know, when I went to music school, that was the first thing my percussion teacher told me. He was like, a good percussionist stays out of the way of the drummer and the rest of the rhythm section. It's your job to be the cherry on the cake, the icing on the cake, you know? So as a percussionist, I was taught not to play all the time. So to me, that's like, and then of course you just got to have the ears, you know. That Everyone Orchestra was really fun because I thought we were all listening to each other really well that day. And and I know it's going good, improvised gigs, any gig in general, when they haul ass, when all of a sudden you're like, what, we've been playing for 2 hours? It felt like 30 minutes, and you know it's a good one. But if it's work, it's like, how much longer? Luckily, I don't have that going in music. But, you know, I remember working day jobs, and you're just looking at the clock going, when is this shift over? You know? But so I'm so grateful to play music.
Fuck. I'm so grateful for music. Shit. You mentioned, you know, at times it's cool to play a lot of notes. Tension and release as something that's like an element or like a weapon of musician. Like, is that something that you consciously incorporate?
You had a music teacher say once, you know, you're either at home or going to the store, you know, and everything else is just passing chords is just the shit between the 1 chord or the 5 chord. So I love tension and release. You know, I think some bands, especially say in the jam band scene, that's the whole deal, just to solo and build the tension however they feels necessary. And then when it hits that climax, say they're on, you know, they just been jamming on the 1 chord, and then all of a sudden they go to the 4 chord. Everyone's like, oh my God, they went to the 4 chord. You know, snobby musician could be like, oh boy, they went to the 4 chord, woohoo. Or another musician could be like, no, man, they're just building the tension on the 1 chord until they broke off to the 4. But you're right. Tension and release is a beautiful thing. And to me, that falls underneath dynamics. I mean, that's the other thing with improvised music is dynamics. Laying out creates a dynamic, but you can also play real quiet and real sparse. Or you can take your signature and just go nuts. I like to incorporate, like when I'm playing drums, punk rock into improvisation. I should say hardcore, because punk rock can be like pop punk rock. But when I say punk rock, I'm thinking really like the hardcore bands that I heard when I was young. Bad Brains being my favorite all-time hardcore band. The shit had so much energy. It just happened to be that. But you can, when I saw Art Blakey and Tony Williams play, they had just as much energy as Bad Brains. And I saw all those people when I was 21. So yeah, tension and release, like another way to do tension is to play a lot of dissonance and then all of a sudden go into a beautiful chord progression that you're just like, oh, where did that come from? So there's a lot of ways to create tension within music. Volume, dynamics, chord choices, sitting on 1 chord for a long time, and it's not just with, like, say, a jam band doing it. I mean, Steve Reich and minimalist music, I love sitting on 1 chord and just building it. Indie rock bands do it too. It's all over the place.
So talking about music festivals like summer camp, you've definitely been to a number of different kinds. Summer camp specifically, like, how would you describe how just like uniquely awesome summer camp is and just like the music festival experience?
My favorite thing about music festivals is when I see a band that I've never heard of. And that's because I'm just stumbling around. Like maybe the first few summer camps I went to, early 2000s, when I was on tour with Les, the bus wouldn't be leaving until, say, 3 or 4 in the morning. So after our set, we just have time just to walk around, go in the wood, and it wasn't as crowded as it is now. But you just walk into these stages and you discover some weird band. Be like, whoa. And that's one thing I like about summer camp. They book all kinds of music. It's really, there's all the jam bands, but there's a lot of electronic stuff. So to me, my advice is just to walk around and take a chance and see something you don't know. Like, that's why I always love playing the campfire stage, because it's sort of right in the center. Or I played with the Iceman Special, the Soul Shine stage. You could tell there were people just walking by that had never heard of that band. Or some of the bigger stages, people got to know who you are and to fill up those areas. So
talking more about summer camp, like 20-year anniversary, what do you think it is about summer camp that's let it have this sustained success and, is like why it's so great?
Well, I think it correlates with the rise of Humphreys McGee and the long-term perseverance of Mo. I mean, and even like Keller, the mainstay. I mean, the folks that have been playing it the whole way. And, the fact that they'll book Flaming Lips or they'll book Cypress Hill, last time, not this year, but the last year I played it, my percussion ensemble, which was a 20-person percussion ensemble, played right before friggin' Guster and then right before Cypress Hill, so that's a pretty different, and then it went into Mo, so I think the fact that they stay true to the jam band ethic, which is tour all the time, play hard, build your fan base. Humphreys and Mo, that's what they do. And then they invite, all kinds of bands. They got Ween there, they get Primus, they get some punk rock bands, a lot of hip hop. Tipper this year. I mean, this year I was sort of bummed because I got to admit, I didn't do my usual thing, which is just like, all right, I'm gonna walk around the festival for a while. With COVID, I was a little bit more like, all right, I got a tour next week with this woman, Ricky Lee Jones. She's 65. I got to be careful. I don't want to mess up the tour. So I didn't get to do that. so there were a few bands I heard about that I wanted to go see. And of course I wanted to see Ween, and normally at summer camp, I sit in with Mo, and there's other bands. So I was glad we were able to do everyone orchestra, but the sit-ins, a few bands just were having the bubble this year. Like they're like, all right, we got to be careful. We don't want anyone to get sick. So, but luckily, summer camp happened. I think all in all, after going a whole year without any big festivals, it seemed like everyone had a giant smile on their face, like I know I did. And just watching some bands from the side stage and seeing a few of my friends showing up, whether Stasic when he came by or whatever. So yeah, I think it's just the booking and those guys' commitment. And then of course you got to, Ian Goldberg and that whole crew, where they have that spot. It's really a great Midwest location. It's right in the close to Chicago. It's close to St. Louis. It's it's close to Ohio and Minneapolis. The Midwest people can come to it. So, and I wonder, I was looking when I was driving through the festival to one of my sets, and maybe you can answer this for me. It seems like summer camp somehow reaches out to people beyond the jam band scene. Like there's locals there. There's people from the vicinity that maybe heard that, like, man, if you go to a Fish show, you're going to have a hella good time, brah. And they're normally going to be at like some young country shit or something, but they're all there with their shirts off, getting loaded and partying. Because it does seem like the word is out that it's a good party. And, what it seemed like this year, the theme was naked. Like every lady there was in a bikini. Was that like the unofficial theme of summer camp?
It's a trend.
Is that the new trend with the kids? I don't know. I'm 55.
Yeah, free the nipple.
Free the nipple?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I was just trying not to be the dirty old man, like going, oh, why all these kids in their bikinis are topless, But,
For people out there that fucking love going to Mike Dillon shows, that shit is therapeutic. Music is therapeutic. With yourself being in that role of being the musician, the one on stage, the kind of like the conduit of that experience. Like, does that role in society like come with a certain sense of meaning to you, or not really?
Well, big time. I mean, musicians are the shaman of our era. That's why people love. And I think, or at least we need to strive to be the shaman. We got to keep that spiritual connection to that deep primal thing. And that's what I've always done in my music. Even if I'm playing drums for someone, I'm thinking about keeping that deep, fucking primal, raw, cathartic thing going. And when it's really good is when it all comes together. So I hope the young band, there's young bands that are doing that. And it's not just all intellectual and not all like same set every night. I mean, that's the other thing about getting back to improvisation. Sometimes it's going to suck if you're improvising. You got to afraid, or sometimes it's going to be so weird, you're going to run people off. I've done it both, I mean, the fact that your podcast is called Weird Music, I love weird music. I mean, I think there's that should be a part of our goal. So yes is the answer to your question.
Fuck yeah. Well, hell yeah, Mike. Cheers to fucking 20 years of summer camp. Any final words, talking about summer camp? Like,
did you watch the Punkadelick set?
Man, I didn't, unfortunately.
But you saw the Evan Orchestra set. I
saw the Evan Orchestra set. I was getting my ass roasted during the days.
No, I know. Yeah, we had that 4:30 to 5:30. A friend of mine calls the barbecue set. Like we weren't facing the sun, but everyone in the crowd was getting barbecued.
Scamp is it's not for the faint of heart.
No, you got to put your sunscreen on and have your big floppy hat on.
Yep.
But no, take chances with music. And cheers to summer camp.
Hell yeah. Mike, I want to ask you one final question. For anyone out there in their first, 5-10 years of being a musician, where they're in that no man's land kind of starting out on their musical path, but not necessarily, being able to pay the bills with it. What advice do you have for anyone out there listening like that?
Don't give up. You got to love it just like you loved it when you were in 5th grade or a junior in high school waiting to get out of school to go play drums and learn your favorite Neil Peart drum lick. Because believe me, even at 55, there's sometimes with the business of music will make you forget your love of music. And you just got to love it. And hustle. I mean, I think every musician I've known, unless you're just the anointed one when you're 10 years old, you got to work jobs. In between bands, you got to hustle. Sometimes the second you get off tour, you got to fucking go do this job and this job and this job to make the end result work. But when you get to the practice hall and you write a new song as a band, that feeling, or I just got out of the studio, wrote a couple songs this week when I got back from summer camp and tracked them, and that feeling of hearing it and going, yeah, that's a good song. That's what's important. So stay in love with the music and in love with creativity. Practice hard, play hard.
Fuck yeah. Mike Dillon on the Weird Music Podcast. Mike, where can everyone find you on your tour on Facebook, on Instagram? What's up, man?
Yeah, I got my website is MikeDillonVibes.com. And on Instagram, it's just now called Punkadelick, Punkadelick, and the Mike Dillon Band on Facebook. So, yeah, we're going to be out. I'm trying to think what we got coming up. We got a festival called Mo Roots. We're playing late outside of St. Louis on the 17th. And then we're doing Chicago at the Point on the 19th. Those are the last couple of shows I got and then we're going down to Jazz Fest. Even though they canceled Jazz Fest, we're all going to do a bunch of cool late night shows still during that time frame. So come down to New Orleans in October. The West Coast in right after Thanksgiving. Nikki Glaspie and Brian Haas and I will be hitting the West Coast. So speaking of drummers, yeah, that's why I was going to ask you. Nikki Glaspie's been playing drums for me in Punkadelick, and she is straight up fire. I love being a percussionist because I get to play with so many great drummers and rip them all off, steal their tricks, and it is energy. Whether you're playing with Nikki or you're playing with Stanton Moore or whoever it is, whatever great drummer, everyone's got their own pulse that comes from their heart. And it's a beautiful thing to synchronize hearts when you're playing music. So it is a spiritual endeavor.
Mike fucking Dillon, everybody. Thank you for listening. Shout out to the sponsor, SEM Tickets. We love y'all. We'll see you real soon. And I want to give one more big shout out to Ohio's own Sacred Harvest Music Festival. Octave Cat with Eli from Dopapod, Jesse from Lotus, Cheesecake with Hauser and Chucky Love, Bacano, Sub T. We'll be there the last weekend of September and hope to see you there as well. Much love, y'all.